All these matters, it was up to the individual states to decide. Those state differences are somewhat diminished today. Still, there is no better way to
Interracial marriage or mixed marriage was banned in the United States. It's important to recognize it was not banned nationally because the nation as a whole, the federal government, did not have the power to regulate.
Lauren Miller. Amina's family had originated in Louisiana, but she had been born and raised in Southern California in conditions of relative racial equality. When she visited Louisiana, the force of the racial hit her hard. Were diminished by their loss of power to legislate on marriage. Was the central state more of an Ohio resident and director of the Filburn Foundation? The Wickard versus Filburn decision eliminated virtually all constraints on federal government.
Level is a reaction to the huge growth of the federal government in ways that it can't be held accountable.
The idea that a large central government is a form of tyranny is one held by many conservatives. As a result, they want to sharply reduce the power and size of this government. They have not succeeded in shrinking Washington, D.C., but they have succeeded in paralyzing Congress, stripping it of its ability to pass major pieces of legislation. With the federal government immobilized, states have begun to reemerge as centers of governing initiative in power.
A big trend, and actually, my personal opinion is it might be a positive trend because an advantage of the federal system, the decentralized system we have, is that it transports politics away from the center and out into regions where laws are made closer to the people they directly affect.
The notion that individual states can be places to try out new ideas has a long, though until recently, hidden history, says Robert Reich, a former U.S. Labor Secretary and now professor of public policy at the University of California, Berkeley.
States' rights really has two branches. One is the South and the refusal by many states to integrate and raise the laboratories of democracy really came out of the idea that the states were trying out things that the federal government just didn't have the courage or knowledge could work unless they were paid extra, or a minimum wage, or workers' compensation for injuries, or even the early beginnings of some sort of Social Security. So California in 2016, 2017 is reverting back to California at the start of the 20th century, in the sense that California is doing some experimental things that Washington...
Efficiency and admissions. And of course, the whole environmental movement, modern environmental movement, began with Earth Day, which started right here in San Francisco Bay Area. So it's not we're going our own way, it's that we're out in front of the rest of the United States. And frankly, I'm convinced the rest of the United States will eventually follow.
Conservatives in America may demur from Paul Sappho's prediction that America will inevitably follow California's lead. It is true that California is the country's most populous state and one of its wealthiest. But it is also true that conservatives hold the reins of power